Hey, hello everybody and welcome to our first international episode of our podcast Millennials. We are 7 lifelong friends from small European country called Slovakia and we are ready to discuss our generation's most serious topics with smile and ease. First of all, and well, before we start, we are sorry about the low quality of this recording, but we have been recording this podcast across many time zones, so we really hope you understand. But looking at Carolina's face, I think she's ready to tell you a little more about this, so Kaki, please go ahead.
Yes guys, welcome to this new episode and I'm really excited about this and I hope you are excited as well. So yes, we are going to talk about a generation that is the most celebrated but also the most criticized and the most complicated of all generations. And my guest speakers are looking at me like I'm not really complicated and criticized, but yes guys, you are part of this generation, millennials as well. And it's really believed that our generation has the world in its pocket because we can travel a lot, we have a lot of technology available, we can learn many languages, we have many possibilities and opportunities in this world. But at the same time we face burnout, laziness and narcissism. So yes, we will discuss these and many more interesting and current topics in our new Millennials podcast. And very important information, don't forget, we appear on the air once a month to talk about the world and us in it in English. So hello, my name is Carolina.
And I'm Dennis, and we will bring you the first episode of our international special podcast, Millennials. There's gonna be a little jingle. So maybe you're asking why we are doing these international episodes in English and why we are not doing this podcast only in Slovakian. Well, there are actually many reasons for that. So the first one would be quite logical because we have spent more time abroad during our studies than we actually spend in Slovakia. So therefore we know a lot of interesting millennials that we would like you to meet and to get to know through our podcast. Second, well, we simply can't map the generation of millennials only with Slovak millennials because millennials are very different depending on their culture, religion, country of origin, education, and we would like to map out our points of similarities and differences as well because, well, our generation simply doesn't know the borders. And thirdly, millennials speak and understand English pretty well, at least we believe so. And also we believe that a lot of our Slovakian listeners understand English as well, so maybe they would appreciate to have some different topics in different languages.
Yes, so our guest speakers in today's episode are two very handsome young men, Rahul and Bhavya. Both are from India that I have met in Melbourne, in Australia, during my year of exchange. So hello to you two and thank you for accepting our invitation, guys.
Hey there, always a pleasure. Thank you for having us here.
Yeah.
Yay!
Thank you.
And before we start, I would like to say that organizing this episode was really interesting because I am in Slovakia, Denis is in Netherlands, Rahul is in India, and Bav is in Austria right now. So it's 9 a.m. for me and Denis. It's 1:30 for Rahul and it's 8 p.m. for Bhavya. So yeah, but we made it.
Yeah, that's actually very surprising that we actually made it. Okay, just to follow up on the countries we're from, perhaps we should maybe introduce also our cultural background, meaning mine and Carolina's. So we come from a very small and actually very isolated country, Slovakia, which is a landlocked country in the heart of Europe, Central Europe, and as I mentioned, the country is quite isolated, and our parents also grew up without access to anything foreign, perhaps with this obsolete mindset that still persists. In fact, there is a far-right party in our parliament proclaiming and spreading homophobia and racism, so we would like to attempt to open and broaden our perceptions of our countrymen, and maybe, strike down some dumb stereotypes. So Slovakia and our parents grew up with a very little touch with the outside world, and when we were talking to our parents about this podcast, they told us that actually the only Indian they ever knew was an Indian actor, Kabir Bedi, who performed an extremely popular role of Sandokan.
Sandokan! Sandokan! Oh my god, that's surprising for me.
Do you guys actually know this guy?
No, I don't think many Indians will know it. It's very
Yeah, personally, I've just heard of the name. I've never really, I was quite surprised when you said the only Indian actor you knew was, out of all people, Kabir Bedi, because I've heard of him, but he's he's not the most famous Indian personality that you'll find around the world. So I was quite surprised to hear that.
It was actually our parents who told us,
okay.
Because at the time Slovakia was part of USSR and, well, kind of part of USSR, so they didn't really have much touch with the outside world, So the only film that got to them was this one where Kabir Bedi was performing.
Right.
But guys, you can see that maybe we can teach you something in this podcast. Not only you can teach us, but we can teach you. So this is very good.
I'm here to learn, that's true.
So, guys, I will start with Rahul Rajas from India. And it's an enthusiast chef because he was cooking a lot when I was with him in Australia.
Right. So I am a person who follows like simple living, high thinking kind of ideology. And this I basically adapted from Mahatma Gandhi, who is kind of national father figure for India. So he kind of promoted us to be that kind of personality which consumes less and make a positive impact on the society. So I will not say I follow that, but I try to walk on those lines. Sometimes I pass, sometimes I fail, but this is what life is. And as far as my professional career goes, so I am an engineer, then I shifted to kind of a rural technology-based engineering background, which is basically part of interdisciplinary program. Right now I'm doing my PhD, almost completing it. So quite excited about it.
Wow, I feel kind of embarrassed right now next to you. We can hear that you're a really intelligent person.
Oh, just edit it from the video.
Okay. So this was Rahul Rajas, and now I'm going to the next person. So Bhavya Singapuri, and no, he's not from Singapore, guys. Yes, Rahul, I took your joke. If it's not funny, I'm excuse myself. But yeah, so Bhavya, he comes from India as well, but right now he's in Melbourne to do his study and also to become maybe one of the best billiard player at Monash University, if you're still playing, of course. So Bhavya, as Rahul, tell me something about yourself.
My name is Bhavya Singapuri, as Carolina said. I'm currently studying Bachelor's of Engineering in Mechatronics Engineering in Melbourne, Australia, and at Monash University. I really just chose Australia because I sort of really like the country and I really love Monash University. Monash University is supposed to be one of the best engineering schools in Australia, let alone the whole world. So that's one of the major reasons and major sort of motivation behind coming to Australia.
Oh, that's really impressive, both of your lives. But I wanted to ask because, well, just to explain a little bit, in Slovakia it's very common for Slovakian millennials to go abroad. Well, in fact, it's 7 of us doing this podcast, and all 7 of us have been abroad at least for some time, either for studying or work. And some of us are still abroad, living abroad, studying. So I wanted to ask if this is something common among Indian millennials.
So I don't think this is common. Like India, if you go abroad and read or study, it's a privileged thing. And the common or general population don't have access to that kind of facilities. So it's not common.
I will actually agree with Rahul, although the change comes when you come from even a mildly populated or outgoing city. So for example, if you go in a city like Mumbai or Delhi or something like that, people generally there have enough financial power. Because it's definitely a financial ask, because we do not get, as a third world country or close to a third world country, we do not get as many student finances or stuff like that to fund our education. So it's either loans or if your parents have the financial power. So that generally is confined to more people who are from metropolitan cities. But other than that, it's not very common for a lot of Indians to study abroad.
Maybe we can just say that Slovakia is also not very supportive of its students. I don't know if Carolina got any subventions or any financial aid from the government, but I got zero, nothing. Okay, so just to follow up on this maybe, and on your studies a little bit, India has the second largest number of scientists and engineers in the world. when we were doing this research for this episode, we stumbled upon this fact, and it's pretty interesting. So I wanted to ask that Bhavya and Rahul, you two chose to study this discipline as well. And in many countries, students follow some traditions or are led by their parents. Just to explain, for example, my grandfather, he was a chemist, and he didn't choose his career because it was assigned to him by government. And after that, then he wanted my father to become a chemist as well. So I just wanted to ask, and if you don't mind answering, is this something that you have chosen for yourself, or was it somehow influenced?
Personally, it wasn't motivated by the fact that it's one of the common courses or something. But in India, previous years, I would say it's slowly changing. But in previous years, what has been the sort of the good thing, or it is considered a good thing, is that if you're an engineer or a doctor, like there have been times in the past where people have just gone, oh, if your son or daughter is like an engineer or a doctor, they can be really rich, they are intelligent, and that sort of puts you at a higher level of social status amongst your friends or fellow peers, or even amongst like your family and stuff. And like they look up to you if you're an engineer or a doctor, which is of course not the right thing, but it was something that was carried on. It was something that was very prominent, I reckon, in the past, like back in like I would say early 2000s, I want to say. I cannot comment before then because I was not born, but yeah, it was early 2000s, I reckon, where they had this kind of sort of the ideology. But I think it's slowly changing. If you go to India, people have started venturing out, going for other sort of fields and stuff. But at the same time, I would also want to point out that we are the country that has the second largest population in the world. So even if 1% of us do engineering, that's already a really, really high number of people who are doing it.
Good point.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Didn't think about it.
Rahul, do you want to add to that?
Right. So my experience, I was not having any family pressure. None of my family members are in engineering background. Most of them are not graduate. So I chose it from my own will because I wanted to do it. But now talking about general thing, which you all guys have pointed, that being a second largest population, even the small amount of percentage do it will be a large amount. But the interesting thing in it is, if you see the women in STEM, like science, technology, and all these, that percentage of women, that is also very high for India. And I guess it's either top or the second one in the world, like the percentage of women in STEM category. Which is quite interesting to me, because this shows that now how the mentality of Indian population is changing when it comes to giving education to male as well as the female children. So, which is very interesting.
Rahul, you made that point, but I think you should give them some context as to why it's a big deal for when women study in India, like the traditional context to them.
Right. I guess that's important.
Yeah.
I don't know how you look at India, but if you see, India is kind of very random, chaotic kind of people are there. So different states is having different kind of behavior, culture, but still we all are Indians, and we are kind of connected by some common string, which is kind of our nature. So having said that, if you see then what used to happen like 100 years before or 50 years, or when India got independence in 1947, then women, in a way, indirectly or directly, were responsible to handling the house and the economical growth, the actual money the male society was supposed to bring in the house. So in that way, females were not kind of allowed to go in. Maybe not allowed is not a right word, but they are not supposed to work outside, and they are supposed to take care of children and their house. And somehow this is getting changed, because from kind of 1% female population as female working population to now almost 45 or 40 or 50% female working population. So this is kind of a very interesting change which happened in India.
Yeah, this is a very good point, and it's really interesting. I'm a big fan of women who are going to start engineering. I don't have a brain for it. I think I'm just me. It's just like I love communication and marketing and management, and engineering is for more intelligent women. But this was a very good point. Thank you. Before we start to go more in details with your life in India, we have done some research about India to be intelligent next to you, and also to educate our listeners or maybe I could just say at least to appear intelligent next to you guys. So India, correctly saying, the Republic of India is a country in South Asia, and it's the second most populous country in the world, as Bhavya said before. And by 2050, India will have surpassed China to become the most populated country in the world. And just guys, to compare our two countries, Slovakia has 5 million inhabitants and India has 1.35 billion inhabitants. And in Slovakia, we have 114 inhabitants on 1 square kilometer. And in India, it's 500 inhabitants on 1 square kilometer. So you can see the difference between our two countries, how small we are. And I found this fun fact on Google, and I wanted to share it with you. I found this guy called Ziona Chana, known, I'm going to explain you. Maybe you don't know him. I know him. And this guy is holding a world record as the head of the world's largest existing family. So this guy has 39 wives, 94 children, 14 daughters-in-law, 33 grandchildren. So in total, there are 180 family members. And for one dinner, they need 133 chickens. Like, guys. So, guys, I found this really funny. And I wanted to ask you, like, guys, if you are coming from a big families, because, for example, on average, a Slovakian family has from 1 to 3 children or a dog. So, Rahul, you can start. Like, are you coming from a big family or a small family?
Right. So, my father and mother, like they gave only 2 birth. But if you see my grandfather, he had 3 sons and 3 daughters. And if you see his father, then it will be around 8 or somewhere around that number. Total 8 children to them. So you're right. It used to happen in India that one couple used to have a lot of children, and maybe the reason was those days the mortality rate was high. So by tendency, they used to kind of populate the world. But now when people have understood that this is not going to sustainable approach, so these days I have not seen anyone who is like kind of 10 years older than me having more than 1 or 2 children. No.
Okay, and what about you, Bhavya?
Yeah, it's a fairly small family as well. Like my parents gave birth to 2 kids, me and my sister. My grandfather also gave birth to 2 kids. It was my dad and his sister. So it's fairly small. But if you go to my great grandfather, so my grandfather's dad, he gave birth to, was it 5 or 6 siblings? So yeah, 5 or 6 kids. So essentially, if you think about it, I think Rahul's point is valid there as well. Because in the past, people did create a lot of kids, I want to say. Gave birth to a lot of kids. Let's just put it that way. Sorry, the engineering side puts create everywhere. Sorry. Nah, but yeah, they give birth to a lot of kids, but that has slowly decreased now. Everyone's going through a more sustainable approach, I reckon, as Rahul said.
Okay, and guys, if you're like those big families, if I can say that, are you living in the same household, or you're living in a different houses, and they're like you're meeting all the family, I don't know, perhaps several times per year, Rahul?
So this is gonna be difficult for you guys to understand, because I don't know how the socio-cultural thing is in Slovakia. But in India, even if you don't live in the same house, you can't abandon your family. Like they will be part of your family at the end of the day. They can come anytime or discuss anything with you guys. However, if you talk about my family, then our house is at the same geographical location. It's just partition wise, there are entrances are different, but as a building, it is just connected building.
Yeah, maybe just to add to it, in Slovakia you also have like a houses with many generations. So you would have your grandparents living with their children and their grandchildren as well.
Yeah, then absolutely. Then that's common.
Yeah. So guys, maybe we are not so different.
Yeah, after all.
And Bhavya, is it the same thing for you as for Rahul's family?
Yes, well, not now, because there's a lot of none of our family live in the same geographical location. Because, well, my immediate family does when I go back home, of course, like mom, dad, me, and my sister. And then it's very common for us to live with our grandparents. So traditionally, we would all live in the same house, as opposed to certain Western countries where once kids become independent, they leave the house. That is something that is very uncommon in India. Like the only reason we would leave the house would be if we are moving to some other city or some other country in my case. So yeah, but at the same time, in India, your family, even your, not your immediate family, but your, let's say your grandfather's brothers, even their first, like brothers and their cousins and everyone is still a part of your family. So you would have to involve them if it were like a family event or something, and everyone is in touch with each other. What generally sort of stops this is if your family is not in the same geographical location, which is the case for my family. So they're all sort of over the place around the world, and which is why we don't meet them as much. But I reckon if they were all in one geographical location, we would all meet multiple times in a week or a month, I reckon.
Yeah, this is good, and I really love that you're so in touch with your family members, because by the end, the family is the best thing that we have in this world. So we need to cherish it. And guys, I wanted to ask you something about that India is the second most populated country in the world. So guys, you are traveling, you were in Australia, then you moved back to India. So when you come to India, do you actually notice that your country is the second most populous country in the world? Like, I don't know how should I ask it, but is it like heavier to breathe when you're outside, like people going around you and walking and everything?
Do you get claustrophobic maybe?
Yeah.
Yes, actually, definitely. I don't feel claustrophobic. No, I wouldn't say I feel claustrophobic. But I feel different because I live in Melbourne currently, and I live in a suburb just outside Melbourne where they don't have as many people. But like because I take a flight to Mumbai, and Mumbai is, I think, the second most populous city in the world. Second or third, I don't know. It's on the top 5. It's on the top 5, if not second. So anyways, the moment you enter Mumbai, I take a flight into Mumbai every time I go back to India. You enter Mumbai, as soon as you get out of the airport, there's a lot of traffic. It takes you 3 hours to just get out of Mumbai. Every time. That's when you like, it's real quick. It's like a tap, you know? You came to India, you get out of the plane, you get out of the airport premises, and you're stuck in traffic. Perfect. It's the perfect way to realize how there's so many people. Plus, like, the other thing is in Australia, there's a lot of free land. Mm-hmm. Like, when I travel around in Australia, there's a lot of free land. There's only houses everywhere, which is not a thing in India. The moment you go to India, it's all high skyscrapers, at least if you're in a metropolitan city. Like, if you're in, like, a village or something, I would understand they have houses. But if you're in, like, a city, or not even a metropolitan, but, like, a mildly populated city, which basically means population of 5-6 million, is still really high, and there's still skyscrapers everywhere. So yeah, I do notice the difference. Yeah.
Yeah. And you, Rahul?
Oh, I'm so used to of this thing. So, but interestingly, when I visited Tokyo, and so when I saw the people crossing that red light and that zebra crossing, then I thought, no, oh my God, this is huge, because I could see thousands of people crossing at one time, and I thought, oh, am I in India? So, yeah, if city is populated, then of course that thing will happen, and that is quite common for India.
Yeah, of course, because me, for example, when I see crossing 10 people at the same time in my city, in Slovakia, I'm like, oh, this is big, you know, so I can imagine when you see thousands and thousands of people crossing the street, it needs to be a huge thing, yeah.
But I think you get used to it. It's like, it's a lovely feeling to have so many people around you.
Yeah, of course.
Well, not during COVID, of course, but...
Yeah, good point.
I wanted to follow up on India's diversity and majesty, and we can see it in, for example, in the fact that you have 6 seasons compared to, well, what we could see as Europeans, that would be spring, summer, fall, and winter. I found this really interesting. So, is it possible to have like 2 different seasons at the same time in India?
Yeah, that is possible. That is quite possible. Southern part and northern part, even I will say rather 3 different seasons or 4 different seasons you might able to see in India at one point of time.
I mean, you can see also different seasons in Australia at the same time, but that's a whole continent.
Yeah, given the India's kind of geographical extent. But interestingly, the northern part of India is, if you see, Himalayas, and then the northern east part is also hilly area, and it's the geographical kind of characteristics is very different than flatland in India. the typical northern part, and then you come to southern part and you see completely different weather. So it happens that if when change of season comes, then it takes around 20 days or even sometimes 1 month to show it effect when it propagates from southern part to northern part.
I think to add to that, I would just say the south part is because it's a peninsula, because it's covered by water on three sides, which means that it's always sort of humid and there's chances of rain all the time, especially in the southern part. And then there's northern part, as Rahul said, is covered in the Himalayan ranges. It's generally like at a higher altitude, the north of India. It's always like covered in hilly areas, mountainous areas. So naturally it's very cold. But then there's like that sort of the central part of India, I want to say, which is just landlocked like Slovakia is. So it goes through extreme weathers. Like during the summer, it's dry heat and really hot. And during the winter, it's really, really cold. So yeah.
I think when we were kids, it was quite similar in Slovakia. Now it's very mild. But before we used to have like minus temperatures in winter. I remember we had minus 15, and in summer it would be plus 35. So the differences were extreme as well. Okay, but there's not only biodiversity. There's also religious and spiritual and linguistic diversity. So majority of the most practiced religions are still present in India, like Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, Christianism, Sikhism, Zoroastrianism, Judaism, and others. And
I had just like Asterixum and Obelixum, just a small joke from my part.
Kaki was very excited about this joke, so
I know that.
You can see the excitement on her face.
You should have seen her yesterday when we were practicing.
Okay, stop.
Okay, jokes aside. What I wanted to ask, like, there are also many languages. There's 780 languages in total and over 1,600 dialects. So I wanted to ask about the dialects. Would you not understand one another because of the dialect, or what languages do you guys actually speak?
So, well, I speak Hindi and Gujarati. Gujarati is my mother tongue because that's the mother tongue we have in the state where I grew up and stuff. And I speak Gujarati, Hindi, and of course English. So in terms of your dialect, it is pretty similar to. So if I'm in the same state, if I'm in the state of Gujarat, there's multiple dialects when you go around traveling in Gujarat. But at the end of the day, you do understand them to some or the other extent. It's difficult if they speak to you like we are speaking. You know how we are just conversing normally and we can all understand each other. But it's very it's sometimes you cannot do that. Sometimes you cannot understand. So you need to go, pardon me, please. Can you repeat that? What does that mean? But the general words sort of stay the same. So you do get an idea. But that's just, I want to say, in the state. But if I go, let's say, because I come from a state I'm from Gujarat state. But if I go to Maharashtra state, which has a whole entire different language, then I wouldn't be able to understand it.
Okay.
It'll take me like people speaking it from experience. Maybe I can start understanding it. But it's almost as if like I am coming to a different country. So that's the sort of the language barrier sort of thing that comes around with different types.
Okay.
Rahul, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, something I can add. So that's extremely difficult when you travel, when you are from one state and you travel to other states which uses different language. And I did that because I was from the typical northern state, which uses Hindi. So my mother tongue is Hindi. And then I did my bachelor's from Maharashtra, which is having mother tongue of Marathi. Fortunately, the script is same for them, but the words and the way they speak, it's a little bit different. So it takes time to understand. So fortunately, now I can understand Marathi. A little bit I can speak also, but now I'm right. If, let us say, if you visit southern part of India, then even the script is different. The way they speak, that is different. You will not even able to get 1% of that language. And sometimes it's challenging, but I guess that's the beauty of this country. We are so different, but still we are same.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. So Rahul, maybe I can ask and we can follow up on that. I wanted to ask like which languages are officially taught in schools. I assume that it depends per state, as you guys have already indicated. But you've said that you had to understand or learn a new language because of the studies. So I just wanted to follow up on that and maybe ask which languages are officially taught.
I guess English is the most common language all across the state. We all are supposed to learn it. However, some states it's not compulsory right now. So to learn English or not, it's up to you whether you want to take that optional or elective subject or not. But most of the states they make an English mandatory and you will have to learn it. And if you see Indian education system, then there is a national education system. But at the same time, every state is having power to create their own education board and give students certificate to pass their matriculation and so on. So the states, when it comes to states, then they have two options. Either you can go with English or you can stay with the local language. So there are majority of people who also do their matriculation from that language.
I was gonna say in that English is of course, as you said, pretty mandatory and is the most common. But the other language that is quite common in sort of the area I come from is Hindi, because Hindi is supposed to be the national language of India. So Hindi is sort of the language that is expected sort of for everyone in the country to know, although there's a divide there because a lot of like northern people can speak in Hindi, but a lot of people in the south do not speak Hindi, even though it's our national language. But yeah, Hindi is also something that is taught in sort of schools as not like a primary language, but as like a secondary language.
I have a little different opinion over there. So unfortunately, the Constitution of India says that the government should promote Hindi language. But unfortunately, it is not written that it's a national language. So sorry, Bhav, on that. But it may not be national language, but it is government's duty to promote Hindi as a language of communication.
I gotta go and check my facts then. My history books taught me the wrong thing, apparently.
Yeah, please check it, Bhav.
Yes.
What I think it's a general misconception kind of thing, which is very predominantly everyone knows in India that Hindi is the national language. There is no national language in India, unfortunately.
Yeah, this is very interesting. So probably if I want to go to India, I will just learn Hindi and probably I will understand everybody in your country.
You're better off with English than you are with Hindi or any other language. Like, honestly, if you go to any of the cities, just speak in English and I'm sure someone will reply to you. If not in a proper English, they'll reply to you in broken English, but they'll get you sorted.
For fun, you can learn some of the languages.
That's true. I will, don't worry. When I will go to visit you, I will learn some. We also perceive India as a country that respects animals. So I know that in India, cows are sacred, and that I, as a vegan, perceive as a smart choice, of course, and not only from the spiritual point of view, but especially regards to our environment and our planet. And I have read up that up to 40% of Indians are vegetarian. So my question is, here in Europe, probably in other countries as well, we are vegetarians or vegans, especially because we want to help our environment. Do Indians realize that vegetarianism are good for planet, or they just doing it because of the spiritual point of view?
This is a little bit technical question. So
Okay.
so how you need to see how this culture developed, why we started worshipping animals and then even trees. See, when you have to teach 10 people, you can have a very close group discussion and you can teach them very clearly, like this is why we are doing it, because we are saving our nature. But if you have to teach 10 million people or 20 million people, everyone will be having a different level of understanding. You can't teach them in a very scientific manner. You have to a kind of revolution kind of thing you have to create to teach them. And to do that, what earlier people have done, they have created this religious concept that we should not kill animals or we should treat plants or trees as a god because there is God in it. And these things, very general population could kind of digest these things, right? So this is how like our ancestors have thought that maybe this is the best way to teach this big population. And in a way they do it. Of course, their intent will be different, but final output will be the same, right? You ultimately are saving your nature. So maybe it is coming from them. But one more thing which I would like to add, when you said that cow is worshipped in India, it's true. But when you say India, then I will say cow is worshipped by maybe 60% of the population. If you see Northeast India, if you see Bengal, if you see southern part, and few of the northern states also, they eat beef. So because their belief system is not aligned with that. In that case, also it is not worshipped everywhere, but it is worshipped by majority of the people. That's true.
Okay, Bab?
I think, but Rahul's point, sort of that sort of understanding comes from the fact that India predominantly has Hindus, and in Hindu religion they worship cows, and I think that is why that sort of that general opinion of how cow is considered a sacred sort of animal comes into the equation, I guess. In terms of, because you mentioned about them knowing or not about how vegetarianism and slash veganism is good for the environment. I think traditionally over previous years, like my ancestors or our ancestors would not have known that. They would have done that because their religion says them to do so. But our generation understands why. So they understand, of course, they understand that the religion is one of the reasons. Like if they follow a religion, they're surely going to be vegetarian or something like that. But at the same time, they do understand that we have to save the planet and it's good for the environment and stuff, and that's why it sort of like is combined for, I would say, our sort of generation.
Yeah, very good point. Very interesting.
Okay. Well, then speaking of environment, I would maybe like to ask about the life quality, because perhaps the most instant association that an average millennial would get with India is yoga and mental spiritual balance. So I wanted to ask, like, is practicing yoga such a trend among Indian millennials as it is in the rest of the world? Because, for example, I could not imagine that some Slovakian, I don't know, folk dance would be practiced so widely and so popularly by the rest of the population. I can tell that, for example, in our small city, which is like 15,000 inhabitants, we have 5 yoga studios. So I wanted to ask about this, and maybe if you guys also practice yoga.
Rahul, you're starting.
I was waiting for verb, by the way. Okay, so right. So of course, yoga is quite popular in India. One of the reason is it's free. You can do it at your home, so you need not to spend a lot of money. And second thing is we have these yoga gurus, right? Which is one of the popular gurus who teaches yoga is Baba Ramdev. Then you have Sadhguru, and like that there are 2 3 other very popular gurus who and they are having a huge fan following, and that's why the concept of yoga or the practicing yoga has percolated to the general population. However, if you talk about a very low middle class working population who spends most of their time in earning money for the family, it's kind of difficult for them to follow the yoga sessions, because you have to at least spend 30 minutes or 45 minutes every day, right, in order to align yourself in those lines. But there are people who don't have that much time. They are still in the surviving mode. They are trying to work for the family, and they spend even 1 minute of their life to just figure it out, that from where they can earn enough to teach their kids in a good school, or give their family a better life. So there are people, so maybe at least 30%, who are still struggling with these things.
I think in terms of yoga, I feel like one of the main reasons it's sort of percolated so around the globe is because of the global outreach that India has in terms of, like, Indians being everywhere. It's like a general trend. Like you'll see Indians everywhere. You go to a small town, you'll still see an Indian restaurant. Like, for example, here in Australia, every small town we visit, there is definitely one small Indian restaurant or something like that. So it's that global outreach that India has, and the fact that Indians are everywhere, which sort of helps us sort of, put out our trends and stuff. Secondly, I would also like to mention that yoga actually is really healthy for you in general as well. So like it keeps your brain calm. It, sorts of gives you a better thinking and stuff. Like, I don't personally do yoga, but I know the health benefits of it, which is why I understand why it's sort of like a big global thing.
Adding to Bhavya's point, actually, yoga is not a kind of medicine to cure you, but it's just a way of life. And what I have seen, the new trend, people do calisthenics, and it's just advanced version of yoga. It's like In yoga, there is Hatha Yoga, which is kind of very weighted exercise in form of yoga, and now people do calisthenics.
It's actually very interesting. I never thought about any of the things that you guys said. That was really insightful. Thank you for that. We've touched upon soul and body. So I wanted to ask if Indian millennials worship also samsara or to translate it a little bit, the cycle of reincarnation. And maybe if you wouldn't mind answering, what is the approach towards death and afterlife? Because in Slovakia, we are taught quite simple, like you behave good, you go to heaven, you behave badly, you go to the hell. And if you have my surname, which is spelled Satan, it's quite clear where I'm gonna go. So yeah, I wanted to ask about these things.
I can take the lead this time, Rahul. Don't worry. In terms of that, I feel like people do believe in it. Like I personally believe in karma, the cycle of the circle of reincarnation, or like the way I like to say it, it's like a famous saying in India as well. What you do, so shall you reap. So this is like, if you convert this into Hindi or Gujarati or whatever, there's like a equivalent proverb for it. So yeah, it's something that I strongly believe in, which is basically karma, which is, I think a lot of people in the world believe that as well. And as far as afterlife is concerned, I think a lot of it is believed amongst certain, like a huge amount of people out there, not a huge, but like a decent amount of population, because that is something that is also taught in sort of the religion called Hinduism. Like they do teach about afterlife, and they do teach about if you've done good things in this life, you'll come back as a better person in the next life, or things like that. So that's sort of the teaching or understanding that is given as to a Hindu. But I wouldn't want to quote about anything about any other religions, because I do not know as much about them.
I think so, sorry to interrupt, but I think it's much better motivation to become a good person than to be motivated by not wanting to go to hell. I think it's a little smarter approach, in that sense.
Yeah.
For example, I was motivating myself to become like an animal in the second life, like I don't know, a dog or something like that, a horse. So
if you want to become a dog, then there is a prescription in Hindu scriptures that if you follow, and you can be a dog next time.
Okay, I will follow this instruction.
Okay, and now coming to the point again, I guess Bhavya has clearly stated that he is talking about Hinduism, and which is I guess the fact, because in India, if you see, there are almost 25% Muslim population is there, and then some other religions are also there, and all of them are having different belief system. What I know is even Muslim population, like they think that there will be one day they will come out of their dead body, and the God will ask for each and everyone's what right or wrong you have done. But as far as Hindu religion goes, I don't think the religious people ever wanted to go to heaven, because reach heaven was never be suggested in our sculptures. So what was suggested is the liberation, and to get that liberation, you have to find out the meaning of life. So that's why people used to actually go to some places where they can actually meditate and think about themselves. And Hinduism kind of says that if you want to know about the universe, first you know yourself. So, and to know yourself, you have to kind of go into meditation and all. So, and from there you can get liberation. So Hinduism always talks about liberation, and at the same time, all the other things like what Bhavya has mentioned, you may find it very interesting that there is a school of thought who even think that if you do good, then you will be trapped in the cycle of birth and death. And this cycle of birth and death means you will not be liberated. Again, you will get next birth, and your soul will still be trapped on the earth. So if you want to just liberate from here, you need to get out of this good and bad things. You have to kind of be yourself.
This is actually a really good point, because as millennials, this is what is really important for us, to find this meaning of life and to actually find who are we and why we are here on this planet.
I really hope it's not only limited to millennials.
Yeah, I hope so as well. But guys, you were talking about Hinduism, which is one of the religions in India. And just for our listeners to explain, it's considered as the oldest religion in the world, but we could define it as a way of life as well. and it's also the largest religion in the world, serving more than 1 billion people. Before going into most serious questions, I wanted to start with a funny question, at least for me. If it's not going to be funny, it's going to be really embarrassing. So guys, tell me, how should I imagine a typical Hindu? Me, for example, I see a guy with a red or a black dot on the forehead, or a turban on the head, or some henna tattoos on hands, or should I just imagine Mahatma Gandhi? Rahul, you're laughing. So tell me how a typical Hindu looks like.
Yeah, so you may have 3-4 different figures in your head when you when you talk about.
Okay. Oh, this is interesting. Yeah. So
She mixed all of them.
Yeah. So I'm Hindu. I have my belief, which is aligned with the Hindu culture. So one figure is me, but like general, if you see people do this, they put a mark on their forehead. Some of them will put a kind of a vertical one line. Some of them will took a horizontal one line. Some of them will took a 3 horizontal line. They follow different kind of gods system in India. Right, and from that belief, they are using different kind of these symbols. Like someone will keep a what you call the choti bhav.
Pony?
like a ponytail?
Yeah, but just the pony.
So some people will do that. Everything there will be no hair, just a ponytail. But there are kind of liberal Hindus. I don't know whether this is right word or not. I didn't want to use it, but that's what people say these days. And in those people, you will not see any mark on their face, or you will not be able to identify that they're following this or that.
Okay, so for example, if I imagine someone with a turban on the head, who is it?
Most commonly, that should not be Hindu, that should be Sikh. Sikh is another religion. But there are some Hindu societies who also put turban, but a different kind of turban. If you want, I can show you some images after some time.
Yeah, okay. And what about the henna tattoos on the hands? Like, is this something that you're doing as well?
The henna tattoos are actually very common in India, like in general. Like we have during Indian weddings, like a typical Indian weddings, we would have like a dedicated ceremony where people would come before the wedding and all apply henna. It's considered as a good thing. It's something everyone does. It's very common in India.
Yeah, but I don't think it's religious. It's cultural, right, Bhav?
Yeah, it's cultural. Yeah, it's cultural. It's nothing to do with religion. It's just something that everyone does, like just culturally. Yeah, and I think that is something most of India does.
It's fun.
I would do it as well. I mean, it's so pretty. I'm always so jealous of these girls who are like having the tattoos on this, and I'm like, I want it as well.
Funny enough, though, we don't call them tattoos. Actually, we just call them henna.
Okay, I will know.
Yeah, we don't refer to that as tattoos. So when you were saying tattoos, it was actually very confusing. I was like,
sorry.
Yeah.
No, you're all good.
Okay. So Carolina mentioned Mahatma Gandhi. I wanted to ask about him and how do you guys perceive him and whether the values of his teaching are reflected in your society.
It's a serious question though, and very important one also. So of course, he is a very important personality when you see Indian history or Indian culture even, because and what I think, let me first say that the most important power which this guy had was not to attack. Like even if someone is attacking you or trying to harm you, you don't attack, right? And actually someone may not agree this thing, but actually this is having a power to change the society in a very sustainable manner. Because if you hand against hand, there will be no hand people in this world, right? So, and fortunately, I will not say we got independence due to him only, because I do agree there were hot blood also in Indian independence movement, and there was pressure from those sides. But Mahatma Gandhi certainly was one of the icon, because what happens once you get independence, then the actual journey comes, right? Like how you want to build a country. And as an example, we have a lot of countries who got independence, but after independence they are not doing good because the person who is leading is doing something bad. So but for India, I guess that thing changed due to Mahatma Gandhi, because every politician or most of them was actually there to understand the problem of people, and they designed our constitution in such a way that it is for the people, by the people, to the people.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything that Rahul said. Doesn't give me much room to say anything, so thank you about that. Nah, in all seriousness, though, I think as Rahul said, Mahatma Gandhi was actually one of the driving figures, and he became a national icon, mainly because of his ideology of sustain, like giving non-violence, being a non-violent person, and changing the whole sort of the way British treated us. I mean, of course, there were times where there was a lot of sort of violence from the other end, but Mahatma Gandhi was very strong on non-violence, and there are claims that it was that non-violence that sort of led to even British people communicating with us.
Let me add one point to it, but there is a group of people who also thinks that Mahatma Gandhi is responsible for the partition of India, which is kind of sad.
That is a debate for a whole another session, I'm reckoning.
That's true.
We can do a second episode to this podcast sometime in the future.
Maybe we can get a Pakistani as well so that we can hear both sides of the story.
Yeah, I would love to continue this discussion, but I certainly agree with that. I think our societies or the Western societies, I think we function on ill-founded values, and maybe it's time to check something new and try a different approach, because this one is quite self-destructive at the moment. But yeah, as you said, it's for a whole new discussion. So maybe I would like to come back a little bit to Hinduism. So Hindus believe in one god, Brahma, right? And next to Brahma, there are two other gods. Oh, am I mistaken? No. Okay, guys. Then let me rephrase the question. Can you explain to us how does this work?
Okay, but coming to this Brahma concept, actually, it's very interesting that in India there is only one temple who belongs to Brahma in all over India, and the temples actually which you will find is for either Vishnu or which is basically Krishna, or Shiva. And these two temples are kind of everywhere, but Brahma's temple, it's only one in India, and there are rarest of rare people who follow Brahma.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's interesting. Because I've read that together Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva,
Yes.
they create the Trimurti, which is the triad.
That's true. So one is creator, one is who takes care, and one is who is destructor. So out of them, if you see, the most of the fan following is for Krishna, and which is Vishnu, and then Shiva. People they say that Brahma was not like there was a time when Brahma was kind of cursed, that no one will worship him due to XYZ reason. That's the reason less people kind of worship Brahma.
And also, guys, I have read on Google that Brahma is represented in many gods. So I have found on the internet representations of an elephant, of many animals. Then there is Shiva with many hands. So how do you know what god are you going to choose? Or are you choosing gods, or like are you just worshipping all those gods?
I think on that one, the really interesting thing about Hinduism in general is that we have so many gods. I can't even put a number to it. There's so many gods, and people worship different gods, but then they all claim to be Hindu, which they are, of course. But in terms of your question, yeah, we do. I mean, I think it depends from family to family and beliefs to beliefs. So for me, for example, I tend to worship the gods which my parents worship, because that is something while you're growing up comes with you. It's like a part of your life, or sort of part of you as growing up. So you never question those values, or you never question why you worship those gods. You are told that they're gods while you're growing up. So like you're sort of told all the good things about why you sort of worship those gods. So you just continue doing that because you don't see a reason why not to, unless you are an atheist, which is a whole different story. At the same time, we do worship a fair few of them, because you can't possibly worship. I think I can't put a number, but there's more than 100 different kind of gods in Hinduism. But I think you worship some of the common ones, some of the main ones. I think, as Rahul said, the triad, as we are talking about, or even Hanuman, who was just under the Lord Hanuman, as they say. He's one of the other gods, that prominent gods, that, or like Ganesh. We have a whole festival on Ganesh, because Lord Ganesh, because he's just another, a god that has a high sort of fan following, I want to say.
Okay, very well explained, Bhav.
Thank you.
You've mentioned that there's a whole festival, so that brings me maybe to how do you guys actually practice your religion. And for example, for millennial Christians, it would be coming to the church every Sunday, but I don't think many of millennials actually do that. So I wanted to ask about how do you practice it, and if you guys stick to these traditions.
So I guess I am supposed to go this time first. Okay. So let me add some information here. So Hinduism has 330 million gods, 330 million gods. And there are some temples in India where all those gods replication, I will not say replication, but representation is available in one temple. It's a very big temple. So you will find that all those 330 million gods representation in that temple. Now, having said that, even we don't know the names of all those 330 million gods.
That's more than the whole vocabulary, I guess. I have a vocabulary of like 2,000 words.
If you see the operational efficiency of God, then every 5 or 6 people, one God is there, which is quite good in a way. Jokes apart, but there are some popular gods, and for example, not only male gods, which are Shiva, even Vishnu, Krishna, Hanuman, some others, and then comes the female gods like Durga, Kali, Parvati, Sati. So, and it's not just a god like that. I will not say it's just a god independent gods. Actually, there is a whole family of gods. Then this family of god related to another family of god. So if you read Hindu like scriptures, which actually explains how the Rama or Vishnu or what's their world or how they works or how they function, then you will find all these gods connected. And at some places you will see Shiva worshipping Vishnu. At some places you will find Vishnu worshipping Shiva. And it's the kind of synergy which I guess points to the same thing which I stated earlier. Hinduism was never be about reaching to your God. It's always about finding the God, like in a way, or finding the kind of way of liberation. So at my house, we don't follow only one God. We follow multiple gods. So you will find a lot of images or a lot of idols of those gods in the worship room. And we can add any god. We cannot subtract, but because it's a little bit bad, I guess. But we can always add gods to them. And another interesting point which I wanted to point out here, if you have noticed, then we are actually saying Shiva or Vishnu. We are not using Lord Shiva, Lord every time, because we are allowed to do that, right? And even if you will see many people who preach religion, they also can do that, because at some point of time we treat them as us. And the basic belief which every Hindu will be having is inside us also there is one God, or inside anything there is God. So that kind of thing where you respect everyone in that way. This is kind of Hinduism.
And I have one more question, and just to give a little bit more context to it, when you attend primary school in Slovakia, you are presented with two options, and you can choose subjects. You can either choose ethics education, or you can choose religious studies, which is normally or traditionally would be thought Christianism. Do you guys have anything similar? Like, do you guys or are the religious taught in schools?
No, not really. It's religion is something in India that is very much up to an individual. So it's more taught at your home than it is in your school. So they don't because India is such a diverse country, and there's so many different religions in any particular city. It would be really difficult for a school to sort of teach according to the interests of a certain individual. So for example, a Muslim will have their own sort of understanding of their own religion, and I'm not going to say they wouldn't wanna, but ideally they want to know more about this Muslim religion that they have. And same as me, a Hindu, would want to have more information about Hinduism, because these religions are big. Like, I'm sitting here and there are some things Rahul has mentioned in previous, throughout the podcast, and I'm talking to myself. I'm like, I do not have any idea about these things. So my point being, they are really big religions. So ideally, you want to know more about your religion and sort of why and what you are following. That's why I don't think it would be practical for other schools to teach so many religions. Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, it's also a little bit weird for Slovakians to say, like, either you study ethics or Christianism, because there's not only Christians in Slovakia, so it is,
Yeah.
it is a strange setup.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Let's move to another exciting theme. I wanted to talk as well about the life in couple. And Bav, like I have been always secretly in love with you. Maybe you know that. I had a question. If you wanted to bring me as your wife in India, what would it mean for you and for me? Like, what do I need to accept?
Okay, so well, in particular, actually, I'm gonna talk about in general what would happen, because ideally, I think my family would be fine. My family would be more than happy
This is good.
because of such an amazing personality that you are. My family would be fine with it, yeah. But what generally happens in general in India, in India, what generally happens is your parents sort of find a girl for you, because that's the idea of arranged marriages is very common in India. I wouldn't say it's 100% that, but it's very common in India. So that's something that everyone wants to get around. So generally your parents will find you a girl who will be sort of approved by your parents before it is approved by you. So essentially, let's say, and I think this goes even in my family, like if I were to bring you as a wife in, yeah, you would have to go meet my parents and get accepted from them. It is only once that they accept that they're going to be happy with it. Like, I know they'll be fine even if they don't accept, because it's my life and they respect me enough and they love me enough. But I think they're still that little, like, she needs to accept that. Plus the idea, because our culture is so big, and as I just mentioned, even I don't know half of it or most of it, And you would have to, like, I think, get sort of on board with the culture and the significance of that culture and sort of why we do certain things. Because in India, there's so many things that as a wife, it's culturally or religiously you're supposed to or / you're asked to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you married any Indian, I would say you would have to learn about all these cultural and religious things in order to be on board and be accepted by all the sort of the relatives and the family. Yeah.
The reason, I guess, the acceptance by the family, the reason is of course the kind of society which we are having, the typical Indian society where your parents live with you in general. If you are having a very nuclear kind of family where you can go outside your family house and then start your own life, then of course that is not a big issue. But majority of the people, like, they can't leave their parents. They have to stay with them. So if you want to stay in the same building or same house, like, everyone should be on the same page, right? Otherwise every day there will be something bad happening. So maybe that's the reason they are little bit overprotective of their children in a way. But at the same time, arranged marriage is not the foolproof solution, because even after that there are things which are happening which are going wrong. So
okay, what if it was vice versa? What if I wanted to marry an Indian girl? How would that be?
Ask your parents. I guess it always goes both ways, because even you are marrying an Indian girl, she's going in another family, so her parents will be little bit worried that what kind of cultural background you have, whether you will treat her in a good manner or not, like what kind of life you can give her. Correct. So, and in India, it's kind of, once you're married, it's not easy to leave you or give the divorce. However, now it is becoming a trend kind of thing, but that was the kind of culture in India, where if you are married, then you are committed for life. That kind of thinking was there. So of course, the girl's parent will also be worried, and they will try to ask a lot of questions from you, even your parents, like what's your background. And now it is happening. I know a lot of people in India who are married with a different nation girl, as well as vice versa. Even in some cases, I know some Russian girl coming to India and living like an Indian housewife.
And guys, it's well known that there is a caste system in India, and it has been working like for thousands of years. So if I want to marry Bhav, Do I need to respect the caste in which you are? So if I'm marrying you, I'm entering into your caste as well?
Technically, if you speak about it, yes, in a way you are, but it's a matter of how much I believe in it. So, sorry, how much my family believes in it. I want to put it that way. So, our family, we don't traditionally. I don't want to speculate anything, but I think this is most like educated people who think that caste is a bit of a. It sort of doesn't matter as long as you are a good person in general. I'm sure Rahul may or may not have different opinions, but I think my opinion in that is, if as long as, or at least sort of where I come from, the understanding is as long as the person has a good personality, is a good person, the caste doesn't matter.
Yeah, Rahul, so maybe if you can present us this caste system or tell us how many castes are in India.
So I don't know the exact number of caste systems or the categories of caste, but it will go around 1 million for sure.
What? I thought that you would say like 4 or 5.
No, so at least 8 or 9 religions are there, and even in each of the religion, I guess there is some sort of this categorization, maybe at very broader level or narrower level, I don't know. But in India, categorization at different levels. One categorization is, of course, what you follow. You can be of different, they call it different societies or different school of thought. So however, all are Hindus, so you can, even if you are worshipping one god, it's not like you disobey other god, they also worship other gods also. So that's the kind of broader level, and then it comes the casteism, the actual caste system. And what I understand, the caste system which you are referring to is the modern caste system in India, right? Because it has also changed over a period of time. Now, talking about modern caste system, yes, for a general population, it's difficult. You are marrying a girl or a boy from some other caste because of a lot of societal belief. Because in a way, caste system was made to protect your values, or not your values, but your identity in a way. For example, if there is a caste A and caste B, and even caste A person or are not family members, right? They can be neighbors or they can be even in different geographical locations. But if something bad happens to caste one guy in caste A, then everyone can contribute for the help. Like it may be a help from a money basis, or it may be help from just a labor basis, or they can be a mentally they can help that guy. So actually this caste system was originated from there, in modern Indian caste system, and then it has kind of propagated in such a way that now people have very deep belief that you should not marry anyone else who is not in your caste. Having said that, I guess since last 10 years or 15 years, this thing is changing rapidly. And now the new change which I'm observing is people are accepting their partners from different caste, but not from different religion. So I'm not talking about general population. Of course, the people who have kind of get themselves educated and now at a very decent position, I guess I will not say 100%, but yes, it is less in them. But there is some people who actually follow that in that category also.
Are you two in the same caste, or are you from two different ones?
So I don't know which caste Bhavya is, but I'm damn sure we are not from the same caste.
I think the only common thing would be the fact that we are both Hindus, but that's about it. Like, cause we might have same beliefs and everything, but we are termed as very different castes. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know what caste means to you, but even we are in different caste, we follow the same kind of culture, we can follow same god, but it's just a caste because we are identified as some group of people, but identified by some group of people, right? Which is not very kind of hard line right now in India. People are easily transferring themselves from this line to that line, and
yeah, it's all a gray area. Let's just put it that way.
Okay. Well, I would just say, no matter caste, you're friends. This is very important. We like each other, everyone, and yeah, this is good.
Yeah, I don't think casteism is, if you talk in general, then is a derogatory thing for us right now, because we know what we are talking about. But there are some cases where casteism may be derogatory. It can be only understood by the lower caste people, right? Because mostly they will be at the receiving end, and one who is at the receiving end can only understand that pain. So I have not faced it at all till now, but I don't know about others. They may not, but what I have seen in the society, that it is changing rapidly, and whatever it was 50 years back when we got independent, right now maybe it's 10% of that.
Okay. I found something really interesting, and there was a thing, and I don't know if I've translated it correctly, but it's called the Love Commando. And they basically set a goal, and the goal was to connect people in love from different castes.
Is it working in India?
Yeah, it was called the Love Commando.
I've never heard of it, and I don't think we've ever heard of it, but I think it's a good initiative.
Yeah.
Because as Rahul just mentioned, it's still sort of frowned upon when someone marries within the general population. It's sort of still frowned when someone sort of marries someone from another caste. So I guess this is a good way
Yeah.
to sort of, if they're in love, if it's a love marriage, if they're in love with each other, might as well, if they're happy with each other, might as well let them get married regardless of their caste, I guess.
Yes.
Is it a dating site?
It's like a Tinder.
Tinder for India.
There are two things actually here. If you are marrying a girl because she is from other caste, or if you are marrying a girl because you love her. So if the first one is the case, then I guess that is also not right.
No, I think it's because of the love. Like, we're talking
Yeah.
only about people in love here right now.
Yeah. Guys, maybe I would like to ask about the people called untouchable, or is this a separate caste? How do you recognize these people within the society?
So this is damn serious. Bhavya, go first.
Well, I don't have much extensive knowledge about it, essentially. But all I know about them is they're supposed to be, well, they are termed as untouchables / Dalits. That's what we call them in sort of the Indian sort of the way. They are considered untouchables because they hold certain, well, in India, so here's the context that I'll give you. In India, certain jobs are considered as not respectful enough jobs. So people will just shit on you, and people will just not respect you enough if you're doing that. So like as opposed to that, some of the Western countries, you know how, for example, you could be I don't know, like a sweeper or something, and you'd still earn enough to, have a good life and still be respected around in your community. Whereas that is not the case. In India, traditionally, what has happened is the roles like a sweeper or someone who takes the garbage and everything, those are all really poor people who don't have the financial power, and which is why they end up doing these kind of jobs, and they don't earn as much. So like they're very like sort of the poor side of the things, and that's why they are considered as Dalits / untouchables. So like it was traditionally believed that if you sort of eat with them, drink with them, or talk to them, you are sort of inviting bad luck sort of thing upon you. So that's something that was traditionally believed, although I'm not sure what is happening on that right now. Rahul, if you want to extend on that one, please.
Right. So as I said, this is damn serious topic to discuss, but I will be happy to tell what I think. So Indian, or basically Hindu caste system, like there is Brahmins, then Kshatriya, then there is one caste which involves
Vaishya.
themselves Vaishya, which is basically businessmen, and then comes Shudra. And after these four categories comes these untouchables. Right. So they are not even these four categories. And that's quite sad. But I don't know the exact context why this was made at that time, considering that in kind of whatever social acceptance in those days. But what is happening right now, or maybe 20 years back, what happened? Actually, Indian society has not accepted these Dalits or untouchables people to sit with them. Even on the same chair or table, they cannot sit. There are some cases where if these guys are trying to travel through a village which belongs to a Brahman or Kshatriya village, which is upper caste, then they have to put their sleepers on their head, which is quite shocking not only to us but for us as Indian also, because these things happened right now. These things are happening at very small level, maybe some remote village. So I completely agree that you guys must be shocking to hear these things, but I was also like, when I hear this like 1 or 2 years back, then I was shocked at same level, like how this can happen at this age. But at the same time, there is acceptance for this, right? That if you are from that community, and those people generally clean your toilets. So when they visit your house and clean the toilet, when they leave, they will not even close the door with their hand because they can't touch it. And once they leave, someone from the family will clean the room and then they will take the bath. So these things are quite acceptable or normal in northern India. So it is quite practiced right now also, and it is, I don't know why, but it is accepted by them also. Maybe it is their a kind of occupation right now. If they don't do that, they will not earn, and since very few of them are educated, so they can't even go for a white collar job. So all these things have accumulated, and now this scenario which I just explained is there. But this is the sad part of it. Now the good part is, when we got independence, then government understood that these things are practiced in Indian society. So they actually gave reservations to this category of people, and using those reservations, actually they can, even they have less marks or they don't have money to read, the government supports them, as well as they get higher level job, so that they can get themselves empowered. But unfortunately, what happened now, instead of empowering them in some or the other way, they are getting power, but they are not getting empowered, which is very different things. We need to empower people, not to give them power, right? Power should be with like the in general the society or the government, but not with the people. So right now, I don't think they are getting empowered. They are getting power. And another unfortunate thing, the people, the section of people from those society, once they got to a good position in society, they are not leaving that status. Now they also treat others as earlier they were treated, right? Which is also a bad thing in a way, because if you reach to a good position, then it's your job to pull others to the same level. But it is also very rare. There should be some people who are doing it, but there are many who are also not doing it. But if you, now I will just put the timeline in front of you, like from 1947 to 2021. If you see, if 1947, if you keep at 100% these kind of thing, where two different caste people can't even sit in train together. They have to sit on the floor of the train, not on the seat of the train. So starting from there, right now we are at a position where, at least in general rural population or the cities, no one can point at you and say that you are from a lower caste, so you are not allowed. So this thing cannot happen right now in India, because people will not accept it in general. Some one or two or three guys will of course revolt, like, no, you can't tell this to this person, he is having the same right as us. So these things are not common anymore. But as I explained, like somehow some little things which got soaked up in the Indian society, and I guess these things will take a little time to get overcome.
Yeah. Well, thank you both. It was really insightful. So maybe the logical follow-up question to me would be, if there is any, because I would assume that they are wishing, as you mentioned, to maybe liberate or get rid of this status or predestination. Could they, for example, and I just only read this somewhere, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but could they perhaps escape this predestination by converting to other religions, or it has nothing to do with one another?
Actually, this happened. That's true. And this is another debate in India, that since we as Hindu population are not taking care of those who we think are from the lower caste, and we are not giving them enough respect, so they are actually getting converted into either Buddhism or Christianism or even some cases Islam. And there is a huge population of these people who converted themselves, including the constitution creator of Indian constitution creator. So he also converted himself, stating the same thing, that a place where you don't get respect, you don't deserve that.
Okay, guys, maybe to ask you about some cultural or religious traditions, because in Slovakia there's like a mix. For example, Easter stems from a religious tradition, but it became more of cultural thing with our Slavic elements introduced into it, and now people actually do enjoy and stick to these traditions, but not mainly to the religious part of it, but maybe the cultural one. Are there any traditions that you really like, that you really enjoy, that are fun, or you're looking forward to?
In terms of India, I think I think I can say it in, because there's different sort of festivals that are celebrated throughout the country. there's very different cultural. When you say cultural, I'm reckoning you're talking about whole of Slovakia. But when I say cultural, I cannot include the whole of India because that's how diverse we are as a country. So, for example, the place where I come from and like the neighboring areas of it, Diwali is considered as a major sort of period for, and it's like it's a Hindu festival, but everyone in that area sort of celebrates it, regardless of them being a Hindu or a Muslim, because that's sort of it has become a cultural thing. Like schools get holidays, work is closed for 2 weeks and everything. So it's like your Christmas break where you have, that 2 week break is similar to us. We have that 2 week break in Diwali during sort of the west and the northwest side of India. But then when you go down south, there's a whole different sort of festivals that are celebrated. For example, Pongal. I don't personally have as much idea, but this has become a cultural thing down in some part of the south of India as well. Whereas in the eastern part, we have Durga Puja, which is like a big thing, especially in like West Bengal and the neighboring sides of that. So I think there's a lot of sort of festivals, even even Christmas. Like for example, in the state of Maharashtra, Christmas is a big deal because they have a big Christian following, I would say, in that state. So Diwali, of course, but then Christianity is also a big thing. Oh, sorry, Christmas. Christmas is also becoming a big thing. And then there's this other festival which is called Ganesh Chaturthi. I think I mentioned it before. Even that is a big thing in Maharashtra and around those areas. So yeah, it's really difficult to pinpoint that one festival because there's multiple ones which have sort of come out of a religion and become a cultural thing in India.
Guys, every podcast needs to come to an end. And this is the case for us as well. So now this is going to be a last question from my part. So guys, as I said before, we were living together in Melbourne. And I think about it a lot because since we were a lot of nationalities together, we were trying to have some parties when we can come together and listen to Indian music and Korean music and Australian music and celebrate all, I can say, our differences, but come together. Guys, maybe this is going to be a stupid question for me, but I noticed that even if you go to abroad, you stick to your culture and you want to let people know what is the Indian culture, what is the Indian music. Is India promoting other production, I don't know, from USA, from Europe? Was Harry Potter a big deal in India, or Vampire Diaries and Twilight and everything?
To the general population, I would say, yes, those are a big deal. I mean, there's a lot of, like, my sister is a big Harry Potter fan. So, there's a lot of influence, like, and I think this influence, sort of the influence on the Western side of things has just increased over the past few years as internet became a thing. Because now we are all connected. Like, 10 years ago, this wasn't possible. I couldn't talk in Slovakia, India, Netherlands, and Australia at the same time, simultaneously. So that was something that was not possible back then. But since we are all connected now because of the internet, I think that's why like everyone is sort of more connected to the sort of the global sort of what's happening around and what's good and what's not good. So yeah.
Okay, Rahul?
So of course, Indian government cannot promote anyone even for sake of Bollywood. But they are very kind of open-minded in that sense because they allowed all these cults to get introduced in India. And I remember when Bhavya was telling that before 10 years, so maybe I am talking about 2004 or so. Of course, I was not having access to internet, but televisions, I watched these Harry Potter and even Chinese movies those times. So, and all these older version of Mission Impossibles and those things. So they used to come, of course, on a specific day, specific time. But I think people liked it because I will say that general population or the majority of the population liked the intelligent shows. However, Bollywood was not able to cater to those people. So when we saw these kind of movies or the serials which are can be called as intelligent show, we liked it. And once internet, we got access with the cheapest internet in the world, then I guess it got boom and everyone is like talking about Enrique and then this and that everywhere. So
good.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, India is very open in general, and everyone sort of. I mean, I do watch a lot of Bollywood movies, but at the same time, the Hollywood movies gives you a different perspective or different outlook. Plus, like they're all like shot in different parts of the world, and like as sad as that, some of the general population in India would not have traveled so much. So this is one of the ways where they can sort of understand the culture or sort of the locations around the world that do exist. You know, places around the world that do exist and stuff. So for example, like what I know what has happened in the past is some of the Bollywood films have been shot abroad, as in like in Europe and US, and that has actually promoted people, as in Indian tourists, to go and visit those places because of how beautiful the places were.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's the general population is really happy to, you know, watch different shows and explore and see how things go.
Yeah, one
Yes.
interesting thing I'd like to add here. I watched English movies only because I wanted to learn English, or I wanted to kind of learn how to speak English.
Same.
It's the same for me. When I was learning English, I also was watching a lot of movies and series with subtitles, just trying to learn some more. Okay, guys, well, really, thank you, but I still have one final question. Oh, maybe one final and one sub question. First one, and I think this is going to be very interesting for many of our Slovakian listeners. What do you guys know about Slovakia, or what have you known about Slovakia?
Well, I know the twins. I reckon that's enough to know.
Yeah, yeah. That's the
Yeah,
best
that's
representation of our country you can get.
I know when they
honestly.
talk to their family, it is a bit aggressive.
Ah,
so I don't know if
stop
that's your
it.
language in general.
It's just the language.
Nah, unfortunately, not much. I don't think we know much. I mean, I know it exists as a country and sort of some of the history of the country and stuff, but nah, not as much. I don't think we know much about, because you would. I hope you define your country as a fairly small country in comparison to some of the others.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, tiny. Yeah.
Tiny.
So in that comparison, I do not think I know more. Like, of course, I would love to explore, and I think when Carolina and Christina were here, they would tell us certain things about Slovakia, but that's about it. Like, I don't think we know much about like what Slovak movies are like or anything
Fair
like
enough.
that. Unfortunately, though.
Rahul?
Yeah, true. I completely agree with Bhav. I only knew the name of the country because I read it in the books of geography or some some geopolitical books, I guess, and that's it. And when we met these two girls, we thought Slovakia must be a beautiful country.
I was a bad teacher when I was in Australia. Sorry, guys.
I too am a bad teacher about my own country. Okay, guys. Well, thank you very much. Really, we appreciate it. I think it was really insightful and funny as well. One last thing. What would you guys, as millennials from India, recommend to other millennials listening to this podcast? Maybe something to watch or something to listen to. Do you have any recommendation, Rahul? Can you think of anything?
Yeah. I guess I will go with one or two movies which you guys can watch because I guess the English version should be available. Is one of them is Three Idiots.
Okay. We're four right now. We're four in this podcast.
Three of them are idiots. So Three Idiots, which is quite recent movies, and if you want to see the old Bollywood culture, like the kind of old societal representation, Indian societal representation in Bollywood, then I think you can also watch Anand, Anand. Anand. It's a kind of old movie, but it's a beautiful movie, and you may cry watching this.
Okay.
And songs, I guess these girls can tell you better with songs because we have talked them a lot.
Cacciarare, cacciarare.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. I am laughing because she's saying kacharare, not kajrare.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a J there.
Ah, okay.
Oh, otherwise it will become garbage.
Yeah. I think from my side, I would just like to add and say that surely we have talked about some of the weird things that happen in India, but I think in general it's a very beautiful place with a lot of polite people. So if you do visit, I would encourage everyone to visit because it's a beautiful place, and if you also want to meet people because there's a lot of them around. But it's a great place. Everyone is really polite, and there are certain things that as individuals or as educated Indians we do not like or we do not appreciate. But I can assure you these are all in changing, and this will all be changed soon enough. But because we have such a high population, of course takes time. Everyone will be educated at some point. This is just the start of a big revolution that India is going through. But in the meantime, if you visit the country, it's a beautiful country, and I'm pretty sure you will not face any problems.
Yes, and as well, all the Indians that I have met with my sister, wherever I was in America or you guys in Australia, they were always friendly, nice, funny, and helpful people. I couldn't not imagine better friends in Australia than you guys. So thank you so much. I love you.
We love you too.
Thank you very much for helping us out with this podcast. We really appreciate it. And for our listeners, thanks to Rahul and Bhavya, you have two options. If you wanna get to know India a little bit remotely, you can watch the two movies. And Bhavya has perhaps a better one. Pack your bags and come visit when possible. So thank you guys, thank you for listening, and we really hope you have enjoyed our first international episode. In case you didn't, you can have your voice heard and get in touch with us. So please, if you would like to make any suggestion or even criticize us, you can shoot us a message at millennials.podcasty@gmail.com. You can find our podcast Millennials on platforms like Podbean, Google Podcasts, Spotify and others. Our episodes are airing monthly, so do not forget to follow us on Millennials podcast social media pages for the latest news. This podcast is made in cooperation with Theatre Falangir, and we would like to take this opportunity to say hi to our fellow actors and actresses. See you next time. Yeah, right? Okay.